Number 1. Strange Man. I never thought that hiking could be scary. I really didn't. I know that there are a lot of scary hiking stories online, but honestly, when I went hiking, there were just things that I couldn't relate to the tellers of these stories. For example, I don't find the woods scary. I don't find the incredible darkness of the woods scary. And when I run into other hikers, I hadn't ever experienced any weird or scary people. Most everyone out hiking is pretty normal. So, when I finally had a scary experience hiking, I knew it was something that I would definitely have to share. I was extremely surprised, and having had it happen to me then made me more apt to believe other stories as well. I work a Monday through Friday job, so when I take a vacation, I get the 5 days off, plus the weekends before and after. So I have 9 days to do whatever it is that I want to do. So this time, I took off for a good and long camping and hiking trip. I wanted to go to an area that I had never been before. I picked a place up in the Appalachian Mountains. I had to fly into the local area, and then rent a car to drive out to a hotel. The following day, I went out into the area that I was planning on exploring. It was scouted out, so I had a map that showed me exactly where I needed to go. Being an experienced hiker, I was very good at following maps of the wilderness. Now, although I have mentioned coming across people in the past, when I have been hiking or camping, it really wasn't something that happened very often. I've just been camping so much in my life that me experiencing it, even in a vast minority of trips, still added up to me experiencing it several times. And all the people I've met, for the most part, just wanted to get on their way. This happened on the 3rd night that I was out hiking. That was also one of the reasons it was odd. I had already set up my camp, and it had already gotten dark out. Definitely no one should have been hiking out after dark. I was sitting around my fire when I heard some noises in the woods. I was prepared in case of an animal, but I quickly saw a man emerge from the woods into my campground. There was nothing unusual about the man either. He was just like any other camper I have come across before. So other than the fact that he was wandering around the woods at night, there really wasn't anything odd about him. I invited the guy to come and sit by the fire with me. I gave him a couple drinks from a bottle that I brought with me. I found out that, like me, he was an avid hiker. However, unlike me, he had hiked and camped in the local area many times before. All in all, we had a really good time just chatting. After that, he said he was going back to his camp, and was happy to not only have met me, but having the opportunity to chat. The following day, I didn't come across anyone. It was just a normal hiking and camping day. However, the night following that, as I was camping, the guy then again came across my camp. He gave me some cliches like, "Oh, what are the odds?" and things like that. It really wasn't that strange, since we were both hiking in the same area. But it was a bit weird that he was acting like it was so unlikely that we would have come across each other again. So I let him sit by the fire with me for a second night. We had a nice time again, and after a while, he excused himself to go back to his campsite. Now, I have to admit, after a bit, I got a little curious about this guy, so I decided I would see if I could find his campsite. I took my bottle of whiskey with me, because I figured I could tell him I just wanted one last drink before going to bed, to explain why I followed him. I walked around in the dark a bit, until I heard some people talking. When I did, I recognized one of the voices as the man I had seen for those 2 nights. Well, of course I was curious as to what they were talking about, so I decided to eavesdrop a bit. And to this day, I'm very happy that I did. "Yeah, he should be asleep soon," the voice I recognized said. He had quite a few shots of whiskey, but hey, if he wakes up, then we'll just have to deal with him another way. You sure he's got anything worth stealing? The other voice asked. Well, at the very least, I'm sure he's got some credit cards in his wallet, the first voice replied. If he goes missing for a while, he can't cancel the cards, can he? I knew they were talking about me, and the words were terrifying. I tried to go back to my campsite as slowly and quietly as I could. I got into my tent, and going through my packs, found my unloaded gun and my bullets. I mentioned I'd been a hiker for a very long time, and I knew that a hiker had to always be ready for trouble. Rather than going into my tent, I went and hid behind a tree, and I waited. Eventually, I heard noises and knew that the two men were coming towards my campsite, but I waited until I could see them, and that is when I slowly came out from behind the tree. They were looking in my things and didn't notice me at first, so I fired a warning shot. When they saw me and saw the gun, the two guys immediately bolted, dropping my things. Now, you probably think this is the end of the story, and it wasn't very scary since I was the one with the gun. Well, you'd be wrong. I scared the men off, yeah, but that didn't mean they wouldn't come back again while I was sleeping. So I had to stay up the entire night watching, and they could have come back from any direction. And who knew if they had a gun of their own or not? So yeah, it was a very unpleasant night. As soon as daylight hit, I packed up and made my way out of the woods. And even though it would take days to get myself back to the area with my car rental, the map showed me how to get to a road, and once I did, I hitchhiked back. I didn't feel safe, really, until I was sitting in my rental car. Number 2. Camp. I used to live in a town for about a year when I was in the 6th grade. It was easily the worst place that I had ever lived in my life. I guess being a small and sort of bespectacled type, I not only had a hard time making friends, but became the target of quite a lot of bullying. Although I had experienced it before, it was actually much worse in this town than anywhere else. There was a trip that the school had every year at the end of the year for 6th graders. It was a weekend trip to a summer camp. We would only be there for 3 days, and nearly everyone was looking forward to it all year. I, on the other hand, wanted nothing to do with it. I wasn't much of an outdoors kid to begin with, but going there would mean I would be spending 3 days and nights with the bullies from school. Evenings and weekends were my time away from these people, and going to camp meant I would be giving that up. However, my parents seemed to think that I should go for my own good. I had no idea what that meant, but I really couldn't argue with them, so I went. I have to admit at first that it didn't seem so bad. Hell, in fact, it seemed like I was more accepted by the other kids at first. In fact, we had a really fun time the first night in the cabin I was assigned. We played a game of Truth or Dare, and I did get a few dares in that got the attention of counselors, although no one got in trouble. So after that first night, I really thought that maybe things were going to get better for me. Well, on the second night there was a dance. I absolutely had no interest in having anything to do with the dance, so although the entire camp was there, I decided to stay behind at the cabins. I was much more comfortable being alone. After a while, though, I noticed some of the other boys headed out of the area that the dance was taking place in, and back toward the cabin area. Although I felt a little more accepted the night before, I definitely still did not feel like I was a member of the group. So I thought before anybody could see me, I would head off into the woods for just a little bit. I wanted to avoid whatever these boys might try to do to me with no adult supervision around. I went out onto the hiking trail. I had been on it once before, when we had a scheduled nature hike. It was quite long and branched off a few times, and after taking a few different branches, I actually managed to get myself lost. And not only that, but it was very late when I headed out, so now it was completely dark, and I was very scared. That is when I was grabbed from behind. I noticed quickly that it was the two kids I saw leaving the dance. They were the two kids I knew that bullied me a lot. One was holding me, and the other began taunting me. "Well, look who we have here, and with no one around," one of the bullies said. "Thought you'd have fun off in the woods?" the other said, the one who was holding me. The one who was not holding me took out a switchblade, and I was frozen in fear. At that point, I couldn't even hear what they were telling me. Both of these boys had gotten into fights with me at school, and they were strong and scary guys. And now there was no one around to help me. No teachers at all. I was terrified of what might happen to me. The one with the knife came up close to me. "What part should I cut first?" "You're not going to cut me and get in trouble," I responded, trying to sound brave. "I won't get in trouble if they never find the body," he responded. Yeah, that was exactly not what I needed to hear. "What the fuck is going on here?" I heard a female voice say. The boy with the switchblade quickly put it away, and that's when I saw one of the female counselors, who I knew was a sophomore in high school. "Let him go," she demanded, and the boys automatically did. "You guys are so fucking dead. I knew you were up to no good when I saw you head off into the woods. Get your asses back to camp right now and give me the damn knife." "My father gave it to me," the boy protested. "Unless you want your father picking you up from the police station, you better give me the knife now," she demanded. And that was all it took, and he handed over the knife. The counselor then marched us all back to camp. She took us to the teacher's cabin, where I had to tell everything that happened. And then, I actually had a fun time watching those two boys get bitched out. Now, you might think this made the bullying worse, but it didn't. Both boys got expelled from school for their actions, and I never saw them again. Well, that's not completely true. When I was writing the story, I got curious about them, so I looked them up. Both are in prison. So maybe that's a word of warning to any bullies who might be listening to this. You should change your actions now, because you never know where you're going to end up. Number 3. Tab Trailer. My scary hiking story happened to me when I was 13 years old. My family had just recently moved to a very rural area. I was more used to a suburban sort of area. But unlike a lot of people who go from a more city-like area to a more country-like area, I was excited about the change. Not only was it just far more beautiful, there happened to be just a world of things that I could experience that I never had before. Our house was beautiful and was on a hill. It was surrounded by a barbed wire fence. Honestly, it was the first time I'd ever seen barbed wire, and I was even interested in that. Fortunately, however, I was smart enough to avoid the barbs whenever I went over the fence, and I didn't get barbed. At least I figured that's the verb I was looking for. The thing that I enjoyed the most about living in that area was going on nature hikes. They didn't have hiking trails or anything like that. The vast area was owned, I believe, by the people we had bought the house from. I would often go out and explore the area, encouraged by my parents to do so. I guess they both grew up out in the country and would go on little hikes of their own. One day I decided I was going to go out and take a nice long trip for the day. I got up early in the morning, put some supplies in my backpack, and I headed out. I really wanted to get a taste of what it was like to feel like I was really going on a real hike, rather than just doing a little bit of exploring. I came across some really neat birds and other wildlife that normally I didn't see. And that was cool because the forest had some of the most colorful birds I'd ever seen in my entire life. But when I went further and further into the woods, I eventually came across something that really shocked me. Looking down the hill I was on, I saw a really little tab trailer sitting at the bottom of the hill. You know what I mean. It's one of the small, egg-shaped camping trailers, one that isn't drivable, and you would have to hook up a truck in order to take it anywhere. Of course, there was no truck in the area, and I didn't see a way for a truck to even get there. And part of me thought I should just ignore it and go on. I mean, if someone was actually living in it, then I would just be disturbing them. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought it would be unlikely anyone lived there, so I decided to check it out. I made my way slowly down the hill. It was a bit steep, as I recall, so I had to be extra careful on my way down. As I got to the bottom of the hill, I began to creep around the trailer. I wanted to check it out and see if there were any signs that someone lived there. But looking around, it really didn't seem like there was. The whole thing just looked really deserted. In case someone did live in the trailer, I thought it would be the best idea to go up and knock on the door. However, I did this slowly as well. Although I was confident that no one could be in the trailer, I was still a little scared. I mean, an unexplained trailer out in the middle of the woods. It could contain anything. As I began to get close enough to knock, I got the shock of my entire life. The door to the trailer slammed open. And what I mean by that, it was thrust open with so much force that it hit the trailer wall and almost closed up again. But that wasn't what scared me. What scared me was the person I saw standing in the doorway of the trailer. I mean, he was the nastiest looking person I had ever seen. He had matted hair and a beard that was matted and caked in filth. But that also wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was the knife he was brandishing at me. The man stumbled down the little steps outside the door, screaming and hollering. I mean, he was talking so fast and wasn't making much sense. But that wasn't what was important. What was important was that he was coming at me with a knife. Nearly at the last moment, I gained my composure. Turning around, I began running away from the man. I turned back and he was still coming after me. I had no idea why, because he still was just talking loads of gibberish. Now, fortunately for me, though, this was an old and haggard hermit, and I was a 13-year-old boy. I was able to run fast enough and far enough that eventually I couldn't see nor hear him behind me. However, I kept running until I wasn't able to run anymore. When I got back home, I explained to my dad what had happened. He sort of shook his head and told me I needed to be more careful. There were some hermits he had come across in the area that he had grown up in. Most of them just wanted to be left alone, and he told me that the hermit, likely, was just trying to scare me away. You know, I guess that's possible, but if it was, why did he keep chasing me? I think he was interested in more than just scaring me away. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. Hope you're all doing well. I decided to release this today, so I would have a chance to talk to you all through the comments during my birthday. Since I have such great viewers, this is sort of like a birthday present for me. So thank you for watching, and thank you for sticking with me through all this time. Now if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and the bell below, or wait for the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave me a comment to let me know what you thought of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. If you have an original story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address provided in the description. But most importantly, please don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.